Like I'm not a solo act. Like I really do love working with people. Like I don't feel comfortable like going off and doing my own thing. I just feel like I just want the best, and I think it's mostly achieved by a team.
Welcome back to Inspired Inc., the CWS podcast, the show where we promote indie comic creators and become inspired by what they create and their journey of creating it. I'm your host, Brandon Bloxdorf, and today on the show, we have Dylan and Lane of the Comix Starside joining us, and we talk about their approach to cons that aren't focused on comic books and why they love cons like IC3. Also, what it's like to go through creative growing pains and the importance of caring for your supporting audience. All this and so much more in today's Inspired Inc. But how do you guys like doing conventions? What have you guys like been up to? Like, since you're from this region, like what do you really enjoy about finding? Are there special conventions you guys like hitting up, or specific ones that not as many creators hit up? Because like this one in Philly, Thy Geekdom, it's like kind of like it's an offset convention. You know what I mean? It's not a typical comic book going show.
Yeah, how'd you find that?
So that was like one. It's funny, like so when we started doing this, I like inadvertently figured out a method of like, I'll just kind of peruse a database of conventions. Mm-hmm. And there are some like I'll do a little bit of research, and there are some that like I put on my like immediate watch list to be like, all right, let's see how this is, or let's take let's be on their wait list to join the to be eligible to attend. And there's some where I'm just like, I'm unsure, but I'm going to follow them on Instagram and just like look at their posts. Maybe we'll skip this year and we'll like regroup the next year and see like,
What website do you use? What's the database?
I don't even remember it, but it's like comicconventions.com or something like that. And it's just
I think I know what you're talking about. I stumbled across a website like that recently. Yeah.
And so like I first I start at the very top and I look at the states. And then so in my mind, I immediately check off like too far, or like we've done this a little too, like we've been in here a little too much, like maybe next year, like, so this was like one of those like tertiary conventions, like from the beginning that like, I think maybe it was kind of, it was very close to us. And I think I'd wanted to sort of start a little further out. Like we started in Rhode Island and New Hampshire, kind of like the main New England area. That's kind of where our first couple of cons were. And then we started bringing it a little closer to home. And I don't know. I saw a video once of like their Instagram, and like their line for their Saturday was like around the corner. I'm just like, all right, cool. And it's a 3-day convention. It's close. Like it just, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I just,
but yeah, we try to change it up a lot. So yeah, we try to like check out conventions we haven't done before. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately there have been a lot that we've liked doing in the past that the last time we did it wasn't very good. Either the crowd is just a lot more into, things that aren't indie comics. Whether it's fan art or just like pop culture, merchandise and stuff like that. So we've been there have been a few that we've been going to for a few years that are now off the list, and we're trying out new ones to see how it goes.
Yeah, that's a big concern, I think, across the market, is just like, where do I find the convention that like lets me sell comics and that like brings that type of audience towards us? So many people bringing their money just loaded with all this other stuff, and like it's hard to really be included and stand out amongst that crowd sometimes. How do you lure like people from that audience to your? I mean, granted, like Starside is super cool looking, and you have an awesome setup, and you have like a plethora of issues. You have like 6 issues, and you have like something that could really enhance people. But like in general, I know it's a struggle to always bring people. I always have struggle, even whenever I table at these offset conventions.
Yeah.
What do you guys kind of do to bring people in?
So honestly, for better or for worse, we really rely on the cool look of Starside. We also think it's cool, and our table setup, and we are really proud of sort of the consistency across our table of. All of the art that we have is done by Jordan, save for like a couple pieces that like a couple prints we've done with other artists, and so it all really flows together, and people really seem to like our banner that we have behind us that we really like as well. Just like kind of this nice graphic that kind of gives you the vibe of what the story is about. And because we're not salespeople. When we're walking around the convention floor, we don't like when people will say, hey, like, come check out my comic, or do you like such and such? Because we're both just like, I guess, at least speaking for myself, I'm so like much an introvert, and I want to see something at a table and like it and go up, and then I'll ask questions, and then maybe I'll buy something. And so we want to give that experience to people as well. So we will just sit and let people come up. We have a display comic in the middle of the table. It's turned to like a page that we love. And we always say, if people are looking, we always say, like, feel free to flip through the pages if you'd like, no pressure. Just we will sit back and let people decide if they're interested. And then sometimes people will just look at the comic and be like, all right, how much? And they'll buy an issue, or they'll buy all 6, and we'll be like, all right, hope you like it. And sometimes people will ask, okay, what is Starside about? And we'll start a conversation. But yeah, we really just rely on, we are giving out the vibes of what our story is and who we are. And if it catches people's eye, they will come and explore it for themselves.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I mean, that's kind of the way to go in a sense, a big way. Cause put yourself in their position sometimes, especially when you're looking at the person. I get like that too. Even though as like extroverted I may seem sometimes, I'm definitely an introvert in the big sense of like, I just don't want to make eye contact yet. Like I just, I'll look over. I just need a breather. Like I'm probably in my own world when I'm walking through like certain spots. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You're kind of just like figuring stuff out. You're kind of panicking because there's so many people around.
Yes.
I kind of wish I can like pause time.
Yeah.
And like kind of walk through and inspect everything at my own.
Yeah, honestly. And just like, all right, cool. I know what I'm going to hit up now. I have a plan. I see how everything's laid out. I know where the bathroom is. I'm not going to freak out if anything happens. Yeah. It's like that con anxiety, and it's con season now. So we're all kind of breaking the ice in these first couple conventions, I feel, into being like, all right, am I going to go through this entire summer into fall, like, just back-to-back shows? Do you guys do other, I know I noticed on your website you guys do other shows as well, but do you guys do anything smaller, like in your local area or anything? Because I do hear about some like art shows and stuff that people have popped into like every week or every few weeks, or once a month type of things. Do you guys do stuff like that too?
It's funny, actually. I have some new friends who, like, every week they're like, oh, I'm tabling at this thing in Brooklyn. And it's just, there are so many events like that that I had never heard of until someone says, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And so it's funny that you bring that up now, because it's just now kind of entering my radar that even exists. There have been local Comic-Cons that, like, people we know and have met through small conventions have then set up either on Staten Island or Brooklyn. And so we've done those. But we haven't done any like pop-up art markets or things that happen on a regular basis. I think just because we haven't been aware of them. And I don't know if there is one on Staten Island. If anyone can let us know if there is, that'd be great.
Drop them in the comments, please. We'll look into all of these. Yes.
That could also be like our fault. Like we're definitely not the biggest, like we don't get out there as much.
Yeah.
Other than like the conventions we're doing. It's just hard whether, we're balancing our own schedules with like events we want to go to and it doesn't work out.
Yeah, but whenever we hear about like a new, oh, hi, kitty cat.
T'Challa always makes an appearance almost every episode.
Love it. Yeah. Whenever we hear about, someone in our circle setting up a convention for the first time or doing something small and local to project local voices, like we always want to be down for that. We did one called IC3. I wouldn't call it local because I think people came from everywhere and it wasn't certainly local to us, but it was Matthew Sardo, whose newsletter I had subscribed to for a long time, put together an Indie Comics Creator Con, and we were like, well, we gotta.
Comics Wellspring.
That's right. That's all about it. And so yeah, it was just like we were like, we have to, we really want to be a part of this. We love to see first time events go well, as that one did. We love doing that one. And yeah.
Yeah, and that was like one of the best type of like conventions possible. Like going there and being there and just seeing everyone that was just like comic focus, and it sounded like everyone had a blast. It sounded like everyone had some sort of success there. I know we bumped into each other there for a moment because like I knew
Yeah, I
like
thought so, yeah.
yeah, like I know like through our messages both of us were just like we know each other somehow, but we like, and I remember it was like if it was a conversation, it was such a brief like we were zooming by and while you're at your table type of thing. But it was like it's one of those things like look how connected that is, and even just mention of that con, and since it was like the only one that's happened so far, you kind of know like if you know about this convention, you know. And what's been crazy is that like more people are hearing about IC3 and what it did and what it's trying to do. And actually, we have a big announcement in our newsletter about IC3 for next year, and what they're doing and like how much it's like grown and all this cool stuff. We'll be giving a lot of insight through CWS. Cool thing to bring up, I guess, right now too. Good job myself on marketing. But it's one of those things like that convention is just what we need. You know, it's like what we want to try to do more, and it would be great to see like it like across the country see that trend, you know, like whether it be IC3 or other people picking it up, but that just that sole focus on like we're just going to do indie comics because like look how much it's grown and the variety behind it. I mean, Starside itself, I mean, you guys have so much like volume just to like disperse and tell about, you know, how did you guys even get like this far into your story, and where did it come from to like become this epic journey of yours?
Well, it was a story idea that I had kind of been like just morphing throughout the many years before I met Lane. And one day it just kind of like came out that I had the story idea that like I wanted to do something with. And, you know, Lane went to school for film, and I just felt like, oh, if I'm gonna tell this to somebody, it's probably gonna be her. And so,
well, really, in my memory, it was Dylan saying one time casually, like, "Oh, you know, I've got the story idea. I don't know, I've been working on it a long time, but I don't really tell people about it." I was like, "Well, I'm gonna make you tell me. I'm gonna find a way to pry it out of you."
And just, you know, I feel like I always wanted to do it in a comic medium. I liked sort of, you know. I wanted people to know what certain things looked like, and I was just like, well, comic is the best way. And it was also around the time where I'd kind of gotten back into comics. Like before I met Lane, I started diving back in a little bit,
reading them.
Yeah, reading them, and so it's just like, yeah, I think that's definitely what I'd like to do. And then I met Lane, we kind of just started writing out stuff, and like it's really come a long way. Like like where the story was like 7 years ago is in a very different place. I think also too, working with Jordan, our artist, was super helpful to kind of help reel the story in, because it was like a lot more longer winded of a tale. And I think just working with two other collaborators really kind of, you know, it helps put the story in perspective. And so like, I think I used to always be afraid, oh my gosh, this thing's going to be so long, and it will be a very long story. And volume 1 sort of acts as like just a little taste of the world. And then we're starting to really like flesh out volume 2 and even beyond that. And it just like that, it's going to feel like a whole different story in a good way, I think. You know, we like stories that like, it takes their time, you know what I mean? You stay on these little moments, because if you show these characters in these little moments, you start to feel a little bit more attached to them. And so I just didn't like the thought of like opening up the book and like we're already, I don't know, like it's just so much stuff going on. Like I want the reader to feel like they're going on this journey like our main character is. And I definitely turn that into a rant and not actually.
No, that's so much to unpack. That's so great. Like,
oh, go ahead.
Oh no, my bad. I was. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. That's super awesome because, like, I mean, for one, like, how was the argument hearing like comics was the visual way to present the story to a film, you know, major over here? How did that go back and forth? Like,
well, it wasn't that difficult. I think, you know, since college, I haven't been fortunate enough to like really do anything with my film major. And I also just love writing in general and love stories in all media. And so there was really just a conversation about what is the best medium for this story? Like, is it a series of novels?
Mm-hmm.
Is it, is it do we write a pilot for a TV series? And I think mostly the conversation was about like, what's the best way to get it out there? Not only to tell the story, but also just to like make it exist and make sure that it exists. And being able to create and self-publish and crowdfund, to be lucky enough to have people interested to crowdfund it, just made it possible. And then we were also just, I guess we decided to do it as a comic, and then we were fortunate enough to have Jordan as part of our family. Basically, he was my best friend's brother. And we were
phenomenal artist too. I mean, it's very breathtaking from the moment you turn the first page. Yeah, great.
Thank you so much.
Skills. Yeah.
I know, it was destiny. But yeah, I kind of knew it wasn't very practical for us to try to make it into a movie. We weren't, I just, with the world we wanted to build, we weren't going to make it ourselves, and kind of writing a screenplay for it and hoping that someone would be interested in these two random people who no one knows writing us like that. It just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, I feel you there. Yeah, I dabbled a lot in film. I was trying to dabble a lot in film. I'll say, like right before I really got lucky where comics were taking off, because it was like when I was a English major, I was like either my prose is going to take me somewhere, my film scripts are going to take me somewhere, or I wish, but my comics would take me somewhere. And I was like, whichever one gets my foot out the door first is the one I'm just going to heavily lean into. And it looked like film was going to be the choice there for a bit. And gosh, that hair just went straight in my mouth. And then and I kind of realized like how like intense and like difficult it was to like even bring a crew together to like have something happen in a weekend, or finding the right spots to shoot things. And we did this really cool fun like little short film, and then we had everything planned after that, but it would fall apart because once you're missing one key person, it's like we need that one key person. Like the other 6 of us can hang out, but that one person can't. And just scheduling like got crazy. But in regards to Starside, I think it's really cool because like you kind of really need like a fun cinematic approach to that story too. And I think it really does have that flair, and that must come from how you guys are writing the scripts, or the direction, or references, or how you communicate with the artist, because it's like that type of like sci-fi and fun and just like world building. It doesn't just like it's really hard to contain in just like a singular person's view and scope, which is why I think it's super interesting. You felt like you needed to have other people join you on this and collaborate with it, because something on that big of a scale, like I think of the first like Coheed and Cambria comics. I don't know if you guys, not a lot. I don't know if anyone's
a huge fan.
Oh, rad. Me too. I love Coheed and Cambria. Yeah, you will totally understand. Okay, the Amory Wars first like volume or two when Claudia was writing it, not the best.
Yeah,
it really isn't that great. Yeah, and especially when we got to like not No World, Good Apollo, Burning Star 4, like the one where I ripped off the title from my podcast and publishing imprint. But like once you get to that one, and he did that graphic novel where he did it with an artist that just didn't fit right, and it was just like bad storytelling. It just didn't work. But collaborated with his wife, and then she started writing the comic with him, and all of a sudden like they redid that volume, and then No World for Tomorrow, the first issue, just came out recently. I don't know if you read that. Yeah,
I know, not yet. I've been meaning to just start over, and I think once the collected volume of No World comes out, that's probably when I'm going to just jump on board.
Yeah, good call. I actually restarted last year, and so I read all of them except for Year of the Black Rainbow. I haven't read the novel yet.
Okay, but I know they've discussed doing comics for it, so
I'm hoping that. It'd be cool to get Afterman comics too. So.
I know. I mean, that's like my favorite. The double album is probably my favorite.
So good. I can rant about Coheed all day though.
We'll chat afterwards.
Yeah, we'll hang out this next weekend. We'll have a nice good Coheed chat.
Sounds good to me.
But that's the thing. Like having that collaboration really changed the story and it elevated it. And I feel like maybe that's what happened with Starside. You just had to like explain it to someone and they had to help you just dissect it and put the pieces together. Is that kind of what happened with that?
Yeah, absolutely. You actually, it's funny. I know we did a little bit of talking and we filled out the form beforehand, but like you brought up a lot of stuff that like it strangely are the exact things that like we talk about a lot of like, so real quick, like when we do our scripts, we actually kind of like, we don't do them in that sort of kind of standard
page
format.
One, panel one.
Yeah, we tend to like write it almost like a screenplay. And when we work with Jordan on kind of thumbnailing the issue, we kind of, we kind of look at it from a more like it's like a cinematic point of view. And we just kind of pick which frame would be the best to kind of get across this idea. You know what I mean? This moment, it's a moment of action or it's a moment of calmness and quiet. What's the best frame of this, if it was a movie to put in comic form? And I think that's kind of how we maybe have achieved, I always think we can do something better once it's out there, but like why I think some of those moments come through like that is because we are kind of viewing it more in motion before we stick it into the page. But I think a lot of that has been amplified by Jordan's collaboration. I think obviously Lane's collaboration with me and helping to shape the story was like invaluable, but like Jordan really helped give us like we started to strive to make the story as good as his art at a certain point.
Yeah.
And he also kind of held us to a certain standard. Like issue 3, it was written like a whole different way. And he read it and he's like,
something's missing.
There's something wrong here. Like and it was tough to grapple. You know what I mean? Issues 1 and 2 were kind of done before we brought Jordan into the fold. So it was sort of just like, yeah, here's this kind of script. Here's what we were thinking for these things. And then issue 3 was like the first issue that we really like came together on.
Mm-hmm.
And it took us a while to like grapple with like what's this missing thing? What are we? We introduced a new character there, and like we thought we had a fun way to introduce this character, and then we were talking with him more, and he kind of just like got an even better story out of us that way. And I think issue 3 is one of my personal favorites, and then issue 3 and 4 kind of act as a good companion piece to each other. And so I think we wouldn't feel as strong about that part of this arc if he didn't say something. He could have been an artist that's just like, yeah, just tell me what to draw and we'll do it. And like, and what I said when I was working with Lane about how to get an artist, my biggest fear was like, I didn't want an artist that just did that. I really love collaboration. I said to Lane this morning, like I'm not a solo act. Like I really do love working with people. Like I don't feel comfortable like going off and doing my own thing. I just feel like I just want the best. And I think it's mostly achieved by a team. And, there's some people that have a whole thing and they just do it by themselves. And I'm jealous of those people. But
same. I feel you there. I need a whole squad for me. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah. But I don't know. I love working with Lane and Jordan. And so I know I kind of went back and I talked about a whole bunch of extra stuff, but
yeah,
you touched on so many things that were like, hey, we kind of do that, or we think about that too. And so
yeah, it was pretty amazing that you picked up on
that.
Does having an artist like that kind of intimidate you when you go into writing mode? Like, you have to hit a certain standard because of like their art style and like what they can produce?
Yeah, I mean, like, even though we've been working really closely with Jordan for a while, and there are some days where I feel like I could just be a little like, not like too loose or like too comfortable, but then sometimes like when we show him a new script, I do get a little nervous. I do hope that like I don't want to have the same thing we had with issue 3, but at the same time I know that if we do, well, then this issue is only going to be better than what we think is we think it is now.
I wouldn't say I'm intimidated. I think especially because
I guess you're right.
We've built such a strong team bond and friendship. Mm-hmm. I know that we can all trust each other and our opinions and work together to fix something if it's not quite right. But it definitely, with the anecdote about issue 3, like he set the bar at a certain level And now it's just kind of like subconscious when we're working. I was thinking when you asked that question, like, do I ask myself, is Jordan going to like this? And I don't actively do that, but it's there in my brain that like there is a third party involved, and just always thinking about, is this achieving what we want it to achieve at the level that we want?
Because at the end of the day, like we kind of, I feel like we dragged him into this, and I don't.
Now we have to succeed for Jordan's sake.
It's like now I don't, I feel in a way responsible
for his future. It's true.
100%. No, I feel the same way. A lot of my collaborators on that same route where, I mean, I see their skill level. China Rosemary, a perfect example. We're working on a book called Fake Your Death together, and she's astonishing. She's so amazing in that, and I know she gets better with everything we've done. And she's always been just so on top of it and so excited for every script. But every time I hand her a script, I'm just like, I hope you like this one too. I hope you like this one too. Like, and I just like know that I have to hit a certain, she makes me work harder as a creator. And I'm sure I do the same for her to a certain extent, but she's really like so talented that like every time I give her something, I'm just like, all right, I did my absolute best on this. And I know it's my best, or else I wouldn't turn it into you right away. So yeah, no, I totally get you on that. It's really cool because like when you find that right person to collaborate with and they can envision your story as you kind of want it, and as like even elevate it to a certain extent, and when they're elevating it past what your expectations were, because you're already so passionate and excited and ready to like talk about this, so much so that you're sharing it to another person to like to create it, like that's a high level to reach for one. Like I don't care what anyone says, to like be able to share your work to any extent on that level and give it to someone to be like bring it to life. It takes a lot of love to like pour it. Well, most of the time, I guess not everyone does that, but in certain higher level stuff. But yeah. And it's like it's just such a good feeling to see like how well it's come together, because 6 issues deep as an indie like book. And how far are you guys looking to go? Because it sounds like you said this is the first volume where you're introducing the world, and now you're looking to go past that and to even expand that collaboration even more. Where are you guys trying to reach towards?
So the first story arc is 7 issues. So we have one more issue that we're working on right now that will be coming out on Kickstarter this fall is the plan. And then, we don't know how many issues it's going to be, but we know essentially the big plot points and where the story is going to end. That was something that Dylan already had in mind when we started talking about it from the get-go, which I think is super important to most storytelling, to have that plan and to set out to structure it in a way that, anyway, I can talk forever about
I love
shows
crap.
that go on too long and things like that.
It's very true, because having an endpoint even as an indie comic creator is really important. That's not something to even stride over at all, because a lot of us go into this, and myself excluded on some stories too, where I was just like, I have this cool intro and I know where it could go. Don't know where it's going to go or how it's going to land or when or what, but like this beginning is pretty sweet. But like that's the thing, like understanding the full scope of your story really does give you the chance to like place things in the right spots in the beginning. Like it can really help your lead up at the execution, give you a full arc, and it really just sets you up for success. Going in blind, it's rough, and you could do it with some stories for sure. I think it is doable, but like, is it really going to really be to the like, quality it could be if you would have just mapped it out? How do you guys approach when you guys start mapping out your stories? Like, what's your little formula that you guys kind of aim towards?
Well, so I feel like personally, it's like I think the sort of, I'll speak for myself, but like the mindset that I started getting into is like, once I think of a good, kind of like you said, like once you think of a good like opening or good idea or good hook, my immediate thought my next thought is then like, okay, so how will it end? I'm sure many people start that way, but I feel like early when we started doing Starside, the end that was there wasn't quite defined. It was just kind of vague. And throughout this sort of working on volume 1, we really defined it. And so in fear of not having a situation like that, where I was just like, oh, I really want to start a project before I know the end. It was just like, if I something sounds cool. It's like, okay, now how do I wrap that up though? That could be as cool as that idea. And so like, that's kind of my first thought, but then I don't know if you wanted to add, but like,
well, yeah, I was just wanting to talk about our process a little more, because we also just, we've been working for a very long time on a separate story called The Devil Himself, that is just like a mini series that we have sent a pitch to one publisher, and our next task is to reshape the pitch for a different publisher. And because that's our next goal, is to have a book published by an actual publisher and get our foot in the door that way. And so since that story is a probably 6-issue miniseries, and then the story is over, the way we approached it was really different from how we do Starside. And it's more of a mystery. And so the way we approach it necessarily had to be different, because you have to lay all of those pieces of the puzzle and, get everything revealed at the right time and have everything be connected. And so that was the way we worked on that. I think was a lot more of a standard approach of, first, a ton of research, because it takes place in Victorian London. So we had to just do a ton of history research, which I found super fun and interesting. I love diving down a million rabbit holes of little tiny facets of Victorian life that I never thought about before. And then doing like an overall outline, knowing, okay, here's how it starts and here's how it ends. How do we get there? And then just getting more and more into the nitty gritty as we went, and yeah, just like classic, outline it and fill in the details as you go until you know exactly what happens in what order. And we did what was really fun was we did the thing that like writers do, where you have a million Post-its and you write like a thing that happens on one Post-it, and you put it, like we had it all across the table to visualize and manually move around these pieces of the story to know, okay, it's going to be most effective for this piece to happen here, and then this happens later. So that was a lot of fun and very, very effective. I think we're very happy with the story that we have there.
And that's the thing about like when you're writing mysteries, like I think Jay Lauder told me this, but he was saying like, you lay out all the pieces of the puzzle, and then to really make it effective and really have those like, oh, well, how did we not see that coming? You just start taking away the pieces, like, and then the story starts getting condensed, but you have all the pieces still, and you just have to like rearrange and where they're placed and where their, the reveals are. And I mean, talk about like when you're making comics in general, you're all about the reveal. You're all about the page turn. So like in a big way, like building that suspense and that mysteryness and like those extra like David Lynch flashes in your panels and whatnot, like that could pop up like that. Like comics are the perfect medium for something like that. Like a novel is nice and fun and it could go deep and go real into the details and everything. But like really to like get some pacing going, I think mystery comics, so cool, so interesting. And I mean, I think that's why I really got into like Tom King, because he got me into like Columbo and stuff like that. And I was just like, you know what? I really was diving into that like noir style kind of like mysteries and like murder stuff. And that's like, something I'm super interested in. So when that comes together, I'd be super hyped to hear it, especially after reading what you guys are doing with this. And it's such a dramatically different shift from like, what Starside is. Does that feel kind of refreshing to step away from this universe for a little bit and dabble into something else?
It is. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And we have a ton of other ideas that are all extremely different from each other, and that we're just, holding on to for when the time is right to work on those other projects. It's a lot of fun to be able to just say, I want to put on some spooky music and dive into Victorian horror, or I want to brainstorm for our sort of Saturday morning cartoon webcomic that we, have been brainstorming about, and just because burnout is very real. Everyone knows burnout. Everyone's experienced it, and being able to kind of move yourself over to something completely different is such a necessary part of the process.
Does any of it feel like overwhelming, or are you just like not at that process of overwhelmed with some of these other projects yet?
When are we not overwhelmed? What are you talking about? um,
We're an overwhelmed bunch. At least me and Lane are.
yeah, that's our natural state of being. We constantly have conversations about that it's okay to, we've talked about input mode and output mode, and that when you are burnt out or overwhelmed, it is okay to go into input mode where you're reading a book that you want to read for fun, whether it's, I just was reading a book about hot dogs. It was a great book and completely unrelated to anything that we're working on. And that's totally fine. And that's great, because where are you going to get ideas if you're not just watching movies, reading other comics, reading novels, going outside and living life? You have to step away and go into input mode and relax. And then you will be able to be better when you're in output mode.
100%. You really do need that reset button. And yeah, it's hard to like accept it sometimes when you have so many things going on. And, we were just talking about anxiety earlier in the episode, and that's kind of where like a big key part of it kicks in, is that you get all these opportunities and you're finally like making stories the way you've always wanted to make them. And you're finally doing stuff that you've always looked up to. And you're like, it's in my hands. I don't want to let it go. And I don't want to like, take too long, because now I'm feeling lazy. And now I'm on social media and they're saying, if you're not like, at it 100% of the time, you're not going to make it. Do you really want it? Is this passion?
Yeah.
And you're just like, I'm just like, now I'm even killing myself even more than if I would have just been like trying to do this for fun, like I intended to.
Yeah.
Like it just remember that it's just comics. When at the end of the day, like it's just comics.
Yeah. It's funny that I think the one, like, I don't know what you'd call it, but that's like overly positive thing of like, I know there's little like things like,
like motivational.
Yeah, like those motivational things that like really kind of got me like extra anxious, was like, oh, you should be writing like 500 words a day or something like that. And it's like, all right, but what if I don't want to? You know what I mean? Like, should I not be doing this? Am I not deserving of,
right?
And it's like years ago that would cripple me, but now it's just like, write 500 words when you want to, but I do think it involves a lot of like Lane said, like when you're doing things, having that sort of passive thought recorder on, right? Like, you're watching a movie and, you admired the way a director did a shot of something and you're like, it kind of like fits something that I was looking to do, or, you know what I mean? And just, I think that kind of stuff is important. And like,
I sorry to interrupt you real quick. Just inspiration comes from absolutely everywhere. I had an idea for a one-shot comic that I got from a food show that we were watching, a travel food show, and it just inspired this idea that became something that's completely unrelated, but something I'm very proud of. And so yeah, you never know how or where you're gonna get an idea.
Oh, for sure. And that's what you need to do. I mean, we're making like a vegan comic book cookbook right now.
Ooh.
And that would have never come into fruition if I hadn't had like some random conversations with people. And then all of a sudden, like I think I was watching I forgot what HBO show my girlfriend was watching at the time, and then I just like it just all clicked in my head, because I'm always the one like cooking at home. I'm always doing all this stuff, and I'm trying to always spread that. And like I was like, it just clicked, and you're like, I would have never thought about this if we weren't watching like the Great British Baking Show or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like brilliant. Like okay, now it's like a fun, exciting project. But yeah, like you need that. You're or else you also might get stagnant, like you're saying too. Like you kind of need that something to like just trigger an idea, and you may not ever, you might be shocked at the ideas you get. I wouldn't have ever thought about making a cookbook of any sort, but now I'm like, I'm pretty hyped to make this cookbook now. Like, awesome. And just just like the hype of like, man, now I have a team, I have friends that want to pitch into it. Like, we can make this happen. How do we visualize it? Like, and then new research, but then it's like, let me finish these first two projects. And then I could breathe and get to that first though. Like, that's also the exciting part where I'm like, you have so many things in front of you that you're like, oh, I don't want to play with this toy now. but I want to play with that one because this one seems too hard. But once you get to that other one, you're like, dang, this is even harder because it's like from nothing,
That is totally a tough thing because you will always get to a point in a project when you feel stuck or it just feels overwhelming. And like you've gotten past the fun part of brainstorming ideas, and now you have to do the hard part, whatever the hard part is for you. And you can jump to another project, but at some point you have to find a way to come back to it. And, usually, well, maybe not usually, as everyone is different, of course, but hopefully you'll get an idea when you're not thinking about it that will help you come back to it and get past that point. But that is always so scary of just like, okay, I'm juggling these 5 different ideas that I love and I'm passionate about, but which one do I work on now? And how do I make sure that I finish at least one of them?
Yeah, no, honestly. And that's the hard part. I mean, going back to where this kind of started was like knowing where it's ending, and that's like a goal for you to reach towards. So when you're mapping it out and you could at least like visualize that like ending scene or just knowing where it's going to wind up, or like, you could even write out that ending real fast and just have it there. You don't got to wait and anxiously like never get to it. You could write it out and, put it on the paper and then work your way towards it. That's totally okay. Like no teacher is going to get mad at you for working that way when you're making comics, like everyone has permission. But it's like, just at least have that goal and at least like work towards it. Like have it framed in your office and being like, I'm going to get to that damn page, like eventually, but like, just like getting to it. It feels impossible a lot of the time. Like even the series I'm working on right now, like both Teenage Babylon and Fake Your Death, I'm trying to like write out the entire series at once so I could actually connect all the dots. I kind of have the beginnings of each one done and finished. And even like China's working on her part and like Christian's doing stuff for Teenage Babylon, but I'm like, I need to write all of it. And I need to just at least visualize the story to at least prove to myself too, that I could finish writing it despite even if they finish creating it, as a writer. It does mean a lot to like at least know that, the story maybe didn't completely get made, but I did my part and I wrote all of it, and it takes a lot of like courage and, energy and effort to do that in itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, you guys are also crowdfunding your stuff too. How do you guys feel about using Kickstarter like throughout the years? Like I know you guys started in around 2017, I want to say.
Is that when we did our first one, or 2018?
Technically it was 2019. We kind of like, our first 3 issues were kind of brought about very weirdly. We wanted to have we had done this silly thing where we booked a convention before our issue was done, and so we didn't really have time to
we gave ourselves a deadline.
We didn't really give it time. We didn't have the time to like kickstart it, so we we self-published it ourselves with our own money, and we went to this convention, and then issue 2 was already in the works, and then instead of like crowdfunding issue 1, so we did like a small run of issues. We knew we wanted to have more, so we were going to crowdfund that, and then like another event popped up, and it's like, oh, actually, it'd be really dope if we had this next issue, because then we'll have 2, and then so I don't think we actually started using Kickstarter until 2019. I wouldn't be surprised if Lane was doing some preliminary work for it. I know you were definitely very big on research and figuring out what we have to do, like what's the best day to launch it on, like what position does the sun have to be in order to get the most energy to make this work. And but it's been an up and down roller coaster of a journey.
Our issue 3 Kickstarter is still our highest backed one, right? We're not sure what we did differently with issue 3 that I know what we did differently issue 3 compared to our 1 and 2 Kickstarter. We learned so much doing our first campaign that the next one was a world different. But from there, I don't know why that one has remained our highest backed one. But it's an interesting question. How do you feel about using Kickstarter? Because we've been publishing issues like once every maybe 9 months, essentially 1 per calendar year, because it's just the 3 of us and we all have jobs that we do and we can't dedicate more time to it. Unfortunately, that's how long it takes. And a lot has changed. A lot always changes on Kickstarter between each campaign. And a lot has certainly changed since the last one, where now, especially public opinion and audience opinion and creator opinion of Kickstarter as a platform and as a company. And so, we're going to definitely keep using Kickstarter, at least at this point, because we have an audience there who are going to be waiting for the next issue. But, we're learning also about from our circle of people, of other indie creators, the other platforms that people are moving toward, like BackerKit, I know is one. And so, we learn new things every single time we do one. We change our opinions every single time we do a campaign, and just kind of try to hear from other people and do the best that we can. But we've been really grateful for the audience that we've gotten on Kickstarter, and the people, like, just so many nice comments people have left after reading the comics, and names we recognize year after year from the previous campaign. They're like, oh, this person, they're still on board with the story. So that's always good. So yeah.
That's awesome. And that's a good approach to do it too, is like, you're going for it because of the audience and the people you've gathered around you for it. You know what I mean? Your supporters are your number one thing when creating comics, and like, just knowing to be like, hey, no matter what we do, like, we do have a certain set audience that's like, they're, like you said, waiting for you to do this. And it's super cool that you've built that fan base. And I think also, you have your own curated like online store too. Like, have you ever considered just doing it through your store? Or do you feel like Kickstarter, because of that audience and that growth, it's just like a convenient way for people to catch up and to like continue promoting stuff? But like, for your best grab, it's to like help fund it in itself.
Yes, definitely the latter. We do get some store purchases, but usually it's someone who saw us at a convention and maybe they picked up one issue at the convention and then they want more, or maybe they just prefer the digital comic and so they go to our website and they get the PDF copy. We would have to dedicate a lot more time and energy to marketing ourselves to just sell on our website. Kickstarter has a built-in audience of people who are looking for comics to read through Kickstarter and through like other crowdfunding platforms as well. People are there. We don't have to really bring them as much. And because that would just be way beyond us to try to do that.
I feel you there. Yeah. It's cool, like, what it could provide in that big sense. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's kind of become the standard, like, if you are an indie creator, like, this is where you go to help like fund us, and it's cool that, the audiences and our friends and family are finally getting curated to be like, oh, okay, this isn't going anywhere. This isn't a phase. This is sticking.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like, we should go ahead and make an account and go ahead and back them and follow them up and whatnot, I know it's like hard to like break people into like, yeah, this is my book, blah, blah, blah. You could get it. You could fund it here to this website. And some people are like, man, I have to make an account. I have to do all this. And you're like, please, like, just do this. Like, for anything else. That's awesome. Like, it sounds like you guys have such like a good roadmap ahead of you, like, it sounds like just like your stories, like the way you guys are focusing your career and with the attempts you're trying to make from, switching genres and keeping things open and like chasing after a publisher next instead of like self-publishing, like, and trying to like grow, like not only your current audience, but trying to find different ways to reach everyone overall. It sounds like, every step you guys have taken, like, you're definitely learning lessons and like doing the work and going, doing the tough stuff and then, having your failures and whatnot. But like, so many successes are coming out of them. And to have a book this far into like, production, it's so cool to see for an indie book. Like, are you guys planning to do like a trade after the 7th or with the 7th issue? What's your plans on like collecting them overall?
We are going to do a trade after 7. We're trying to stop emphasizing that so much because we already know that if we say, oh, after this campaign, the next one is going to be the trade paperback of this arc, people are like, okay, I'll just wait for that then. And we don't want the issue 7 Kickstarter to totally flop. But yes, the first volume will be issues 1 through 7. And we've been talking about that so much. We're really looking forward to putting that together. and hopefully reaching a whole new audience as well, because we are usually we'll just buy volumes, trade paperbacks, graphic novels. We aren't really often issue to issue people. So we know that there are people out there who aren't even looking at single issues. So we're really looking forward to doing that.
That's awesome. Yeah, it'd be great to see, just again, that's another monumental thing is like, okay, I did this run and now here's it collected. And that's like a step where I feel like every indie creator is, just striving slowly to reach. Cause like you said, an issue a year, we're on issue 7. Like that's, some tedious work, and it might even be short a year because, 12, 9 months versus 12, you know what I mean? Maybe 6 years, maybe instead of 7, it's 6, but still. That's a dedication. You know what I mean? I think
a quick anecdote. We went to a convention on Saturday at a local high school. It was a lot of fun, and I believe a young person came up to the table and said, "Oh, Starside, I think I got the first issue of this when I was like 10." And I was like, "How is this? What are you talking about?" I didn't say that, but that's what my brain was doing. And then later we did the math and they were like, oh, if they're like 15, 16 years old, yeah, it was that many years ago that we started doing this. So we just felt like, wow, how time has passed.
That is crazy. And it's like, as a kid, that feels like decades, like 15 to 10, like eons have passed, but
Absolutely.
yeah, just the thought of that, just being like, man, that really strikes, you know what I mean? Like it's been a while.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go on.
And just another positive about having the volume is that my new anxiety at conventions is like when somebody just buys like 1 or 2 issues, because I know like issue 3 is where it really like.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge turning point.
Yeah, like and so like when they're just like, oh, I'll buy the first like 1 or 2, I'm like, in my mind, I'm just like, please just ask for 3, please, just get there. So this way, so
we should start just throwing that in for people.
Right? But I get very self-conscious about our earlier work. I mean, it makes sense at this point. It is very old, and we're not the same creators, and so like when we see the work that we're putting out now, and to think like someone's gonna buy only issue 1 and then decide, are they going to continue or not? So at least with the volume, they own like this whole arc. And so it's up to them to finish it. And my hope is that by the end, they're just like, okay, I'm interested to see where this goes. Yeah. So.
That's the growing pains of indie comics are one of the hardest things to overcome, I want to say, because like, even we have a book that actually, as we record, it's wrapping up on Kickstarter. But by the time this comes out, it'll be just wrapped up. We were publishing a book called Outer Spaced, and it was a book that like I knew these guys, Ben and Eric, and their artist Jackie, and they're just cool book, awesome concept. And I was like reading the first issue, and I was like, this is gonna go somewhere. This is really cool. I was like, it's not quite like where I wanted to hit. Like it's not there yet, like, but it's so close. And then they did a submission for our second anthology, Cybersync, and it was still the same 3 of them paired up again. And when we do submissions, we always look at, we read the story and then we look at the creators, because we don't want to we try not to do any favors or like have a predetermined thing when, our friends, hey, let's check out their work, we always look at the stories first. And we had selected the story and we're like, all right, who are we going to be reaching out to and everything? And then I was like, this is Ben, Eric, and Jackie, like what the heck? And I was looking at it and I was like, if this is like where Outer Space is going, like we gotta like talk to him more. And now Apollo's publishing Outer Space, and they're with us, and we're really excited to have him part of the team. And like I love seeing that leap, because like the potential is always there at the beginning. And if you could just see that, and it's kind of like when you watch the first season of Doctor Who with the 9th Doctor, like, or like, it's really goofy and you're just like, this sounds real cool. But then like the 10th season, David Tennant comes in and you're like, this is amazing. Like, I love this. And you're obsessed. And like, that's what indie comics kind of like react like. You're always like, I gotta get through the first season first, and it's going to be bombastic and fun and great after that. But it's just the way it goes. You got to get the vibe. You got to feel comfortable. And collaborating, on such a scale, it does, have its ebbs and, turns and everything. So you got to kind of overcome those so they smooth out on, your further progressions and whatnot. Like it's part of what, it's a hard selling point, especially for, like we were saying, trying to grasp that new audience, and they want to start from the beginning. but finding a way to market that in, like, oh, you get the third issue half off, or we get it for free, or just, I'm not trying to be a salesman, but you really want to get the first 3 to like get it. Like it's one of those like things to like come up with. But I think that's what keeps us on our feet when we do table as well, and try to like just get people to find attention in our books.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, this has been an awesome hour of hanging out with you guys. I'm super excited to hang out in Philly too.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's gonna be super sick. We'll catch up. We'll have some Kohi talks.
Yes, I was gonna say we'll have to have some Kohi talks.
I have a lot of stuff to tell you about that. That's super rad. But I'm so excited that we got to hang out tonight, guys. But before we sign off, why don't you tell us where to find your work and what you guys will be up to for the rest of 2024?
Oh my gosh, pull up our convention calendar real quick. So we are at Starside Comic on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We definitely update Instagram the most out of all of those. You have a website, www.starsidecomic.com. So all of that is STARSIDE comic. And we are working on issue 7 right now. Jordan is doing he's on the pencils, I think. Yeah. And so that'll be coming out later this year. And we have a bunch of conventions on the docket.
Like Geekdom Con, we're going to be at Anime NYC in August. New one, Contropolis in July. And then a little bit of a break. And then we...
SPX?
SPX is in September.
Mice we haven't heard from yet? Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on. On our website, we have a events and conventions page that we do have to update.
We do. But,
yeah.
A lot
happened. Hopefully issue 7 this year as well, which I'd be super excited.
Where Jordan is every time we meet with him, he's like, I think I can get this done before this convention or something. And we're like, oh, hey, dude, totally up to you. Like we're no deadlines here. We're just doing this to do it.
Don't rush it. Take your time. Make it look great.
Yes. But if he's confident and he wants to go for it, I can't stop him.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was so cool.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Keep me updated about the vegan cookbook comic because I am very interested in that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. In fact, some New York people, Life on Saturn, you guys should look them up. They actually gave me this awesome, insane, like I would have never thought it would have been this cool, but this really cool like cabbage mix recipe. They made cabbage exciting and it's insane. And it's so cool. Yeah. Like hit them up. They do a book called Fennec. And it's super awesome. So I definitely recommend you guys check that out. And they're in your area. They're in the New York area.
Nice.
They're in the Bronx, actually. Yeah. Super cool people. Awesome couple too. Speaking of which, Dominic and Lydia. Yeah. Super. Yeah. Go hang out with them. They're freaking great. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Yeah. We have Apollo's going to have a lot of stuff coming out in the next like year or two. So I'm really excited for all of our upcoming announcements. Once we get these anthology Kickstarters wrapped up and we get our books in and start fulfilling stuff, it's gonna be really cool. But this has been great, guys. We'll hang out next week. I'm so glad that we got to talk, and I'm glad that we get to hang out. It's always exciting to talk to someone and then bump into them at a con because it's just like a different level of friendship everyone ends up having. So it's super fun. But rad. Well, to all of our listeners and all of our watchers, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget about checking out Spilled Ink every Thursday night. Me and Max Flowers hang out and draw stuff live on YouTube. Watch me learn how to draw and see Max Flowers just do awesome, amazing stuff. We have guests almost every week. We have Jimmy Reyes coming up, a great inker that's going to join us for one episode, and a bunch of cool announcements that we're doing for June and July, including a lot of cool manga announcements coming out for July. So I'm super hyped for everyone to learn about that. And don't forget to like, subscribe, do all your things to make sure you're getting both your episodes twice a week and all the cool shorts and clips we're doing as well. And hit up the CWS newsletter for all sorts of new updates. And other than that, thanks for hanging. Stay creative.
Can I throw out one last thing? I just want to shout out hi to John, who's a listener, listens all the time and told us about the podcast and gave us the hookup. So hi to John.
John.
Thank you.
That was perfect. And stay inspired. Thank you guys so much. Looking for high quality printing, fast turnaround, and the industry's best customer service? Look no further than Comics Wellspring. Trusted by thousands of indie comic creators, Comics Wellspring is proven to be the go-to comic book printer. So when you're ready to bring your comic books to life, go to comicswellspring.com and be sure to check out one of the best platforms to sell your physical and digital comics online, the CWS Bookstore. Remember to subscribe, hit that notification bell to see our lives come out twice every single week on YouTube and podcast platforms. And also tag us when you share your favorite episodes and moments from the show. And remember, creators, thanks for hanging, keep creating, and stay inspired.